That's not looking good. That definitely not looking good. That's looking very good. Mother Nature had different plans for us last week. We had about 6.5 inches of rain in a week's time. It did some havoc, and it was pouring all day Saturday last week. So we didn't get much done outside. We did some cleaning up in the hangar. But part of that is that rain did havoc on our garden. Now, we didn't get nearly as much rain as further west, the Wichita, and then going south that area. They had 6 inches of rain in one event in a 24-hour period. That event that gave the Wichita area 6 inches of rain, we only had 3 inches of rain. I say only. That's still a lot of rain in a 24-hour period. Our soil out here is not a sandy loam. It's kind of a tight clay soil. There is some topsoil, but that gets really hard when you get heavy rain like that. It tends to beat it down, and the water takes a long time to soak in. So with that, out here in the garden, you can see the crusty areas. You can see what it did to that water did to our bean bushes. Even the potatoes got hit hard. Some of the sunflowers. This was the worst area. This had standing water that was 2 inches deep for about 3 days. As it evaporated, just was not soaking in. So we definitely have to get some organic material out here, and that is on the list to do this fall. We're going to do a couple of truckloads of compost, and we're going to do cover crops. We got to get this soil broke up so it will absorb better. Also noticed something been digging out here. I'm guessing possibly a squirrel or maybe an armadillo. But next batch of sweet corn all have ears. It's looking good. I did treat for moths. The moths so when you get a worm in your ear, it's from a moth laying an egg in the silks, and then that larvae goes down in there. So I did treat with that, trying a different technique. The first batch was a complete failure. That I tried going organic. What a bunch of garbage that was. Didn't work at all. So this entire crop here was a failure. Every single one of them had massive worms, no matter how much I treated. So I will never use that organic product again. This corn got hit pretty good in the rain, but it is coming back. We had some good temperatures. Corn loves the heat. Over here, this was the latest one, so these will be ready in August. So we're spacing them out so we have a constant supply. These will be ready in August. Some of the seeds got drowned out. These were just an inch out of ground when that rain hit. Some of the rain was heavy enough it bent them over. Some of them are broken. It's coming back, and I believe rabbits got that one. Found a couple rabbits in here. Popcorn is all grown. The ears are a little small, but they are done growing, and now they're just going to dry out. And they don't get like regular sweet corn, but the silks are really nice. This one here is fresh. Some of them were a little later than others, but the silks are doing good. And here's one that's dried up. Popcorn will dry off out here. But other than lots of rain, we did get some cleaning up done out in the hangar, and I did get a bunch of maintenance done on the airplane. A couple of things to finish up today. Then the annual inspection will be all done. It'll be airworthy to go fly. And then next week, start working on the fifth wheel. Oshkosh is coming up in a couple of weeks, so we're going up to Oshkosh for EAA Air Venture 2026. We'll be up there, so the fifth wheel's got to get some work done to it. Gonna repack the wheel bearings, tire pressures, inspect the roof, just give it its early summer inspection. But with that, that's a quick update there. Gonna head in and repack some wheel bearings on the airplane. Hey, Ed here at Wingit Airfield, finishing up the task I have for the annual inspection on 77 Sierra, and today I'm going to show you main landing gear wheel bearing repack and cleanup. Pretty easy job to do, so I'm going to show you the highlights on what's involved with it. First step I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off this wheel cover. So on 77 Sierra here, Cleveland wheels, it's got this wheel cover on here, three screws, pretty easy. Remove these 3 screws, and they're, with this particular setup, it does not have the center bolt, and it does not have a dust cover inside here. So save the screws and set aside. So in here you will see got a cotter pin and then axle nut. Behind the axle nut is going to be a felt seal, and then the bearing in. First thing I want to do though is I want to get this up on jacks. So for this particular airplane, I have the wedge. So just set it under your gear here, and then this piece of wood is going to go up here. And this is going to take 2 hands, so I'm going to set the camera down. Okay, so the wedge goes up here on the front, and like that, and that holds that in place and pulls it forward away from the brake line. And I'll use my bottle jack, which might be a little overkill for the airplane, but we'll get it jacked up. So we've got the bottle jack positioned underneath and lift it up. Because this landing gear spring loaded, you will hear the tire rubbing inwards as it lifts up. If you notice your jack or your wedge move, just make an adjustment. We just need to go up far enough for the tire to spin freely. I like to do, a ½ inch above the ground. There we go. All right, now that we got jacked up, before we can pull the tire off, this particular setup The rotor for the brakes is attached to the wheel. So when you pull off these aft two bolts, which will hold the inner pad on, so word of caution, take one out, and as you get the other bolt almost out, don't remove it all the way. You don't want to drop your pad, so just hold your fingers up under here. Remove the last bolt, whether you do bottom first, top first, doesn't matter, and then catch it in your hands. There's the pad. Now we'll remove cotter pin. And discard the cotter pin. This axle nut might be finger loose. They do not get tightened down very much. I'm going to set all my parts on some cardboard here. Okay, we got the cotter pin removed, we got the nut removed, and now the wheel will just slide right off. And there we go. Next up, clean up your axle real good and clean up your brakes. I do have inside the brake caliper, I'm going to replace the piston seal. I'm not going to record that. And then next up, we'll be pulling the bearings out of the wheel. Here's a little tip I like to do whenever I'm working on something and I'm going to be away from it for a little bit. I'll take some blocking and a balled up, rolled up rag and set it underneath here. Now I don't have the airplane resting on it, but if anything should happen with the jack, at least this axle is going to rest on something soft. Okay, we're ready to pull these bearings out. Here's another tip. When you're setting your wheel down, set it on something soft. Don't set it directly on the concrete. If you got a nice workbench, that's great. Wipe off some of the excess here. So there is a snap ring here. Get a hold of, and there it is. And clean as you go. Clean and inspect. It's not fractured, it's not bent where it's way out of whack. Looks good. Underneath there is going to be the metal retainer for the felt seal. It's like a little dust seal. The felt is impregnated with the grease and oils. And set your parts in order for how they come out of there. Below that is going to be a metal washer that goes on top of the bearing. That looks good. And then here's the outer bearing. So when you get your bearing, spin it and check for any excessive play or any flat spots. You'll feel them. And then we're going to clean them up. Get all the excess grease off it that you can. And that is ready for the new packer. Clean up the race that's inside here, the bearing race in here. Clean the excess grease out of there. You'll go through a few rags with this process. It's a great time to clean up all the excess grease and grime off the wheel. I'm feeling for any rough spots, any grooves, gouges that the race is installed in there. And then before I put it back together, I'll get a flashlight and I'll look at it. Just flip it around and do the backside. Very similar removal. The snap ring's got a little groove, help you get a screwdriver or a pick under, and then just, instead of just pulling up on it, pull in, you know, pop right out. Okay, so don't just pull up. If you just pull up, you're going to bend it. So pull in and it will pop right out of there. This side here tends to get a little more, the grease tends to get caked on a little more because you've got the heat from the brakes, depending on how the pilot operates it. Here at Wingit Airfield, with the turf strip, really the only time we have to hit the brakes is when we're coming up the park on the concrete. And then we hold the brakes to an engine run up. That's about it. Haven't had to use the brakes to stop. So this will come off of here. I'm not going to spend the time on the camera. I'm going to use a little center wing Sullivan and get that all cleaned up good. And back after cleaning up that snap ring. Looks much better now. Underneath the snap ring is going to be a metal washer. I'll get that cleaned up also. Here's the felt dust seal. Another metal washer, and this might be suctioned onto the, just do the suction, the friction from the grease on the bearing. It might be stuck in there. And then the bearing, and the same here. Get it cleaned up really good, and we'll be ready for packing. So I'm gonna get these cleaned up and I'll meet you over there at the bearing packer. So I have the bearings all cleaned up, visually inspected. Now it's time to pack them. So this is aviation approved bearing, wheel bearing grease. Push down to squeeze it through. So something I like to do when it's the first time I'm working on something, I'm not familiar with it. So you can see that there's some different colors. So even with going through a Sullivan wash, a little bit of that previous grease was in there. I like to wipe that out of there. Wipe it off the top plunger. I'm not sure what was used previously on here, but because I'm using the Aero shell, I want to make sure I get a good grease changeover. I don't mix them. There we go. That's really all that's needed. And then it always gets stuck in there. You give it a spin. Very good. See if any more will work into the grooves. It does. These bearing packers do a really good job. And something else I like to do with the clean grease I have is where the bearings are going to be on the axle, I will give it a light coat. And then this bearing will get set aside on a clean piece of cardboard. We'll do the next bearing. And then with the second bearing, I will go into the wheel and I will wipe the bearing race with this grease. Got the wheels all cleaned up, got the bearings all re-greased, got a little light butter coat of grease on the bearing race inside. So we're going to put the bearing race in. Now this is the inside. We got to pay attention to which side it is. So it gets a plate. The felt dust seal. Gets the other plate. Push everything down. Wipe up the excess. You don't want a bunch of grease on the outside here because this is where your brake is. Next we'll put the snap ring in. Super easy. Get it started and then pull it in. You can see, pull it in. There it is. Check with a screwdriver. Go around. There we go. The inside is done. Bearing goes in. The metal plate. Push it down. Felt dust seal. And then the snap ring goes in. Check it with a screwdriver. Ready to install. Everything's all cleaned up. I took care of the brake caliper, replacing the O-ring in there, and went out and took care of the bees. So we're going to slide this wheel back on. Clean off some of the excess grease that inevitably gets knocked off. I'm going to put our axle nut on. I'm going to spin it down with my fingers for now. Get that wheel bearing the seat. So I'm going to torque this and set it properly per this airplane's maintenance manual. You need to refer to your airplane's maintenance manual and get it torqued down, and then I'll be back with the cotter pin. Cotter pin is all installed. Perfect time to check your tire pressure, or to remember to check your tire pressure before you put your cover on. And then you can put your cover back on. Now it's time to put this inner brake rotor on. Simply hold it into place. Slide a bolt through to get it started. And go down to your second bolt. Doesn't matter if it's top first, bottom first, doesn't matter. Get them started with your ratchet, and then refer to your maintenance manual for the brakes that you have, whether they're the original or they're an STC. These are Cleveland brakes, so I'll refer to the STC ICA, and I'll get these torqued down. And then that's it for a wheel bearing repack. You know, these are torqued. I have some other work to do. I need to bleed the brakes since I replaced the O-ring on the cylinder. So when doing that, I'm going to flush out all the hydraulic fluid that was in there. And that's it for main landing gear wheel bearing repack. Quick and easy.